Okay, so we have everyone on the call, right? Amit, Vinod, Satya, Alvin.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Okay, so yesterday we covered things regarding logs and everything. So today we will cover clustering basics and what are the purpose of cluster, what's the basic need and why we use cluster and all everything, all the advantages which are associated with clustering and how you can implement the same in your Weblogic environment. Okay, so as the name suggests, the any queries before we start, or we can go ahead. Okay.
sorry? No, I don't
Any?
have.
Yeah, Sahadev, you have queries?
No.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, so what is clustering in WebLogic, or what is clustering in general? So what is a cluster? A cluster is a group of managed servers which are running simultaneously and they are working with each other to provide increased scalability and reliability. Reliability is you can trust on your cluster that okay, my app will be available all the time, no matter if any mishappenings happens with any of the managed server or any of the physical server. So if you have like a cluster spanning across multiple machines, then if even if like one machine is available, your app will be available. That is the main purpose of cluster. So in a cluster, usually we have multiple managed servers which we assign in the cluster, and the basic features provided by cluster are scalability and reliability and availability. So how reliability and availability, that is through replication and redundancy, because if any managed server goes down, we have another managed server scattering to the load in cluster. And how we achieve the scalability, that is through parallelism. Parallelism is nothing but you can add as many as managed servers you want in your cluster. So you can easily scale your environment from like 4 managed server to 8 managed servers without much efforts. So for your clients which are like directly accessing the application, they will feel that the app is running on single server because they will not feel any difference. But your app is running in a cluster among many managed servers. So these are the basic features provided in clustering. And what are the basic cluster guidelines? So basic cluster guidelines are that all the servers in that particular domain has to be in the same domain. So they will be managed in one administration console. You cannot have like two administration console for a cluster. So suppose if I have one domain on Amit and one on Sahdev, then you can have one cluster in each, but you cannot have a one cluster across both the domains. So one domain can have the all servers in cluster should be in the same domain, and all servers has to be at the same maintenance pack level, or you can say at the same patching level. Means the WebLogic version should be same. Otherwise, like there will be miscommunication or some errors during the communication between managed servers. So you can have clustered servers or clustered managed servers. They can be on the same or different machines. So you might remember that we created a clustered environment, right? On Binod and Amit's machine. So where we have the where we were managing the managed server in Amit's server from Vinod's domain. And we like migrated, we created a template, then we moved the template there and created the domain using that particular template. Let me go to the slide. Yeah. So this is the how we configured managed servers on remote. So remote physical server. So we created the domain. We using pat command. We created a tar like archive of our all the important configuration files, and we transferred the jar file to the second node. Then we unpacked the domain. Okay. Binod, actually you might have those particular commands. So you can mail me on the same mail ID which I shared, and I will add it to the Google Drive so that it is accessible to everyone. Even like you can also. We created some like notepads in Ubuntu.
Oh yeah.
So that we will be having then all the data on a single path. At the like end of the session, once you have got time, you can.
Okay.
Okay. So at that time we created managed server on Amit's machine, but it was part of the domain in Vinod's machine. So that is how clustering works. So you can have multiple managed servers spanning across multiple physical machines, and they are part of the same domain. And they work in like conjunction with each other. They work in coordination with each other. They communicate with each other, and they act as a single entity. So you can have as many as clusters you want in a domain. So that is up to you how many clusters you want. So you can probably create a cluster as per the app requirement. So suppose you can work like that. And
Anuj, you are not sharing the screen?
oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was sharing.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding. Actually, usually I have to like share. So if you are not seeing, you can always ask me. I just didn't notice that. I was thinking all the time that you guys were able to see my screen. I was sharing this screen earlier for configuring the pack and unpack utility which we used to create domain in Amit and Vinod's. Okay. So this is the current slide which we are working. So we checked out the definition of a cluster, what are the features, scalability, reliability, high availability, and the cluster guidelines that all should be in the same domain, all should be having the same WebLogic version and patch level, all clustered servers can be on the same or different machines, so they can span multiple machines, and you can have multiple clusters as well in a domain. You can have as many as clusters in a domain. And how you utilize the cluster, basically what you do at that time is you simply target right now Binod, like when we deployed the application, where did you target the application? What are the targets?
Server.
Yeah. So but if that particular, so suppose you have targeted it on managed server M1, right? Or
Yeah.
you have targeted on managed server ABC. So what will happen is if ABC goes down, then your app is completely down. And that is like usually not a perfect way, or in like high availability environment, you have to create a cluster assign managed servers in a cluster, and then you need to when you deploy the application, you need to deploy it onto the cluster. Suppose we have like 2 to 3 managed servers, we can have one cluster for those 2 to 3 managed servers, and then we deploy on the single cluster. And when we deploy in the cluster, it will be like automatically deployed onto all the managed servers. So your user request will be coming through some URL. So the app URL which you were using initially, right? The advertisement application, and also you were giving managed server port number. So at a time you were able to, because you were like focusing on the one managed server, but if that managed server is down, you need to again change your URL. So what happens in clustering in, you have a virtual IP kind of thing, and that connects to your managed server. All the managed servers which are in cluster, so that request dynamically comes to whatever the managed server which has the lowest load, or as per the algorithms, the request come to the managed server. So usually you have a load balancer kind of thing which allow using which the request comes to your managed servers in the cluster. So we will see that. So you target your ER files, WAR files, and JDBC resources on not on the managed server individually, but on the cluster, so that you can achieve high availability and scalability. So the main point is here is like why we are using clustering, what are the benefits it provides. So we are just using it for high availability and scalability. So we need to configure clusters in such a way and the environment in such a way that our app is highly available and you can scale it anytime for more number of users. So suppose today you had n number of users and tomorrow you will be adding 100 more users, then probably you may need to add some more managed servers. So you just simply go to the cluster and you just add the managed server in the cluster. So it is as easy as that, and all the resources will be automatically deployed to that cluster. So you don't have to configure anything. So there are like load balancing in a cluster. So how the load is balanced in a cluster. So suppose you have like 2 managed servers in a cluster. So how the load is balanced in a cluster. So basically like there are 2 kinds of objects here. So first is for Java server pages, which is JSP, and servlets, which is Java code. So for them the load balancing is external. Okay. External means you need to configure that externally, and that cannot be configured at the Weblogic level. So you will configure the cluster here and you will deploy the ER on the cluster, but how the request is coming to the cluster, that needs to be configured at external to Weblogic. So either you can have a third party hardware or software load balancer, or you can have a web server proxy plugin. So you can have Apache or iPlanet or OHS. There are many kinds of web servers available. So we will check out how we can do that for Apache in further session. We will see how we can achieve clustering using Apache. So that will cover this JSP and servlets load balancing thing. And then there are EJBs. EJBs are basically your enterprise Java beans. So they are like internal objects which exist in your application. So for them actually it is important that the load balancing is done at connection time. So when your app is connected, so at that time the load balancing is done. So what happens for EJBs is that in case of EJBs, the EJB objects are cluster aware. So means the object knows that okay where the request needs to go to which managed server, and it has to go to the specific EJB itself, because if it goes to another EJB and that might not be having that particular transaction. So what happens here is the load balancing algorithm is stored in the clustered objects stub. So whatever the EJB objects are, inside there is a function called stub. So what kind of algorithm is being used is stored there, and the objects are made available on all the cluster members, remote object connect, and according to the algorithm in the stub. So you can have round robin, you can have failover high algorithm like that. So what are the load balancing algorithms? In case of EJBs, they are round robin, weighted, random, and server affinity. So what is round robin? So suppose you have two managed servers, right? And they both are in a cluster. Okay. So here your request is coming. In round robin method, what will happen is the request will go to first A. Suppose this is A and this is B. So this is A managed server and this is B managed server. Request is coming to cluster. They are part of the cluster. In round robin algorithm, first request goes to A, then goes to B. The third request will again go to A. Fourth request will go to B. So it's working in round robin fashion, one after another. Okay. Weighted is we assign the weights to managed server. It works in that way. Random is request can go to any particular managed server. Server affinity. What happens in server affinity is affinity means something is attracted to something. So if my session was coming to A, then server affinity will allow the request to come to A itself. For all the requests coming for that particular transactions, they will go to server A. So means all the requests are coming to server A because server A has the server affinity. So all the requests are attracted to A only. They will go to B only when A went down or there is some issue with A. So then if there is an issue with A, request will continue to B until there is some issue with B. But like you might you don't have to do all this because that will be done by the developers itself if they want to do that. Okay. We will see this load balancing right now. So it is an example of our basic cluster architecture. Okay. So this is like our normal, you can say this is our domain. The whole thing is our domain. This is firewall. This is the number of users which are connecting to firewall. So the arrows are representing the number of users or different kinds of users connecting to domain. Then we have the load balancer. So all the requests from firewall are going to load balancer IP. So load balancer has an IP defined, which has an host FQDN. So your FQDN, if the requests are coming, and the load balancer can be, it can be an hardware based load balancer, it can be an software load balancer as well, and even like you can have an Apache web server as a load balancer. We will cover the Apache part. So the requests are coming to load balancer, and then load balancer redirects the request to your cluster. So in your cluster you have two servers, server 1 and server 2, and here we have a web container and EJB container. Web container contains your JSP pages and servlets, and EJB container contains some EJB objects. So that there are apps deployed. So in this there is the load balancer redirects the request to manage server 1 and 2 equally. So that is the basic cluster architecture. So here the static HTTP presentation logic, business logic and objects are all same in the same cluster. And let's see. So this basic is the for JSP and servlets. In that basic cluster architecture, the requests are going to equally in JSP and EJBs. So how it is different from multi-tier cluster architecture? So what happens in multi-tier architecture is, in web tier it contains the web tier architecture and the business logic with services, the EJBs, they are separated into two separate clusters. So we have cluster A and we have cluster B. So cluster A only has the presentation logic like web container. So JSP and servlets, they are present inside cluster A, and we have two more managed servers, they are in cluster B, which has the EJB container. EJB is your enterprise Java based. So EJB contains basically the business logic. So this is your multi-tier architecture. So you can clearly see the difference here. The load balancer was sending requests to managed server, and managed server was hosting both the web container and EJB container. But here the web and EJB container are different in multi-tier. So you have like two different tiers. So you have for presentation web container you have one cluster, and for EJB container you have separate cluster. This was basic and this is multi-tier. So when it is required or recommended for web applications, so it is recommended for web applications that require load balancing for EJBs. So if load balancing is needed for EJB, then you do the multi-tier architecture load balancing. But usually you will be having like simple the development team will probably ask you if they need some other different kind of clustering and all. But usually what your task is to deploy the app on different cluster and design the cluster and adding servers to cluster, configuring everything, uh, configuring like load balancing in front of the Weblogic. So any queries here?
You said like for the third party, the clustering we use Apache, and then what was the other one?
Third party, for third party, like it can be either hardware or it can be software load balancer. So
Oh, okay.
hardware
So
load
what was?
yeah. So hardware load balancer are your like they were provided by your network team. So they are like some router, or they are different kind of like router, or they are configured in such a way that load balance, they act as a load balancer.
Okay.
So that
So
is they are like dedicated hardware load balancer and your system administrator. So they will ask you that, okay, tell us the cluster IP and ports. They will ask you cluster IP and ports and the context root. So they will accept the request and from the user. Okay, so because user will be given the URL of your load balancer. So
okay.
the request will come to load balancer first, and then the load balancer will determine on which managed server it need to transfer the request. So that is hardware load balancer, and software load balancer you can configure itself. So in that case, we will give user the URL of your software load balancer. So suppose you have yeah, for software load balancer, you can have Apache web server, you can have iPlanet web server, or you can have Oracle HTTP server. There are multiple web servers available in the market for which Weblogic itself provides some plugin. You need to make some configuration in Apache, and then your all request will work from the Apache to Weblogic. So in that case, Apache will act as an proxy web server, and it will like load balancer. So it will take the request from user and forward to Weblogic cluster. So you will understand it more clearly like when we like we will be you guys will be installing Apache. Then we will be today we will be creating the cluster for managed server. You guys will see how the cluster like works if one managed server goes down or other managed server goes down in the cluster, and how we can configure the Apache part.
Okay.
Okay, any other queries? Else we can move to communication part.
So it's always better to do in a multi-tier, right?
That depends. Like usually you will be using the basic architecture setup itself.
Oh, okay.
So you will be having only this basic cluster architecture mostly, unless your dev team asks you to use multi-tier cluster architecture, because they it's like their call if they want to separate web container and EJB container. So it's not something we can suggest.
Like, is there advantage to doing this?
Can you do your mail? Okay.
Yes,
I'm sorry?
these are the advantages
Yes,
and
it doesn't make
disadvantages.
sense.
So in basic cluster advantage is that the administration is easy,
Uh-huh.
okay, but the only disadvantage is it cannot load the
Okay, thank you.
EJB method calls, because in that case the EJBs will not be aware and the request might go to some other EJB business, and there might be some issue with the business logic. And what are the advantages of multi-tier? So in multi-tier, actually, we have improved the highest level of improved load balancing. So even like the basic load balancing plus the load balancing of EJBs.
Uh-huh.
So that is the main difference. But the problem is it has like increased licensing cost, and it can create a bottleneck in presentation tag because there will be frequent like number of calls will increase. So here we saw that okay, here there were only two arrows. So load balancer was connecting to this, and they are acting as a single unit and giving response to load balancer. But now the number of calls have increased.
Uh-huh.
So load balancer request is first going to server 1. Then from server 1 the request is going to EJB container of this, and then from this to this to this. So
Uh-huh.
number of calls have increased now. So that like depends how you want to use that. But mostly it is usually the basic cluster architecture only. Mostly. Like I didn't have to at least use it till now.
You didn't have to use the multi-tier?
Yeah.
You do or you don't?
No. Don't.
Oh. So if we go to a job, right? And if they ask us to do a multi-tier, what do I say? What do we say? It's better to basic because you just give the advantage, right?
Yeah, because if like didn't have like they didn't want the separate cluster for EJBs and web tier, so at that we can suggest to use the basic architecture. But if like their requirement is they want explicit load balancing and high availability for EJB as well, and if they're focusing more on EJB part, then yes, we may need to
Multi-tier.
work in that way.
Okay.
So let's see how the communication occurs in a cluster, because now we have a cluster and there are many managed servers in a cluster, and even the managed servers can be on different servers as well. Suppose one managed server, there is a cluster A, and cluster A has 4 managed servers. 2 managed servers are on Binod's machine and 2 managed servers are on Sahdeep's machine. So how the communication happens and how they uh, maintain any failover. So just in case any managed server goes down, how because the request is coming to cluster, so there should be some mechanism to take the failed server out of rotation. Out of rotation means if a server has failed or it is going down or it is in hang state, then you need to take it out of the cluster. And that you don't have to like do manually. It is automatically done by the Weblogic.
Give me 1 second.
Sure. Okay, Binu, shall we start? Binu.
Okay, guys, thanks. I'm back.
Okay. Shall we start?
Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, so this is regarding the communication. So basically, all the managed servers like connect to each other using different kind of protocols. So the communication is clustered. There is a peer-to-peer using sockets. Okay, and there is a peer-to-peer using unicast or multicast. So what? So basically, there are two type of connections where in the communication. So in peer-to-peer using socket. So peer is your managed server. Okay. Peer-to-peer means managed server to managed server using sockets. Okay. So what happens in peer-to-peer using sockets? You are accessing the objects which are not clustered, which are deployed to some another clustered server instance on some like remote machine. So those are accessed using peer-to-peer connections. So one managed server connects to another managed server. It grabs all the info regarding the objects or like what is their current state and everything. Okay. And what happens in that? It replicates HTTP session states. Okay. So whatever is your HTTP session state. So you might have some users. Okay. Some users might be connecting on managed server 1. Other user in some other user is on managed server 2. So right now, what so that the user doesn't face any issue if your managed server 1 goes down. The HTTP session with which he was connecting, that particular session is also replicated to other managed servers. And why that was done? So that if your managed server 1 goes down, the user should not face any issue because his session details are already present on the other managed server. So he can continue his session. Okay. Okay, Vinod, Amit, Sadev. So even like if we imagine that okay, we have a GoToMeeting session going on, and right now it is working on some managed server 1, and if that particular managed server goes down because its CPU has went down, suppose if there is some issue with CPU and the server abruptly shuts down, then your session on that particular managed server is gone. But the GoToMeeting, they are like connecting to some virtual IP, so that will detect okay that server has gone down. So let's transfer the request to managed server 2. Okay. So managed server should also have the session details like over the users which were connecting, what was the state, and if the recording was in progress, so that you should not feel any kind of disruption. So even if like one goes down, then we would transfer to some other server which have like the same session details. So we will not even feel the difference, but the server have switched. So that is the power of clustering. Even like we faced a problem also in some days back that we were not able to see the screen. Okay, we were not able to see the shared screens quite fast. So we like closed down the session and we reconnected. So what happened is we were connecting to the same IP and everything, but the request goes to some other clustered member. So it didn't go to the old cluster member. and after that we were like able to successfully share the screen. So we have two kind of protocols which are used for communication. Okay, so one is Unicast and other is Multicast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in that, the Unicast and Multicast, so they are used for cluster wide JNDI updates and for heartbeats. So heartbeat is, as you know, till as long as the heart beats, we detect that the person is alive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So same thing is here as well. And we will see it next how. And what is cluster-wide JNDI updates? So cluster-wide JNDI updates is basically so you can say that basically the JNDI is Java naming directory index. So it is like just like you have an index in a book, okay? There is a cluster-wide JNDI tree as well, which exists for any cluster and at the domain level as well. And what is the purpose of that particular JNDI tree? It has all the local resources and all the resources which are available throughout the cluster. And this list is maintained on all the servers in the cluster. So you might have seen that when you were like creating managed server, or when you were creating that particular any data source, at that time it was asking you a name and a JNDI name. So there were two names which it was asking. So you can give any name you want, but JNDI name you have to give, it should be unique, because that will go to the index. And whenever any resource wants to access anything WebLogic, it goes to the tree to check if that particular JNDI index is there. What is it for? It is for JMS, it is for JDBC, it is for deployment, and then it connects to that particular, it grabs the name from the JNDI index. So in case any managed server goes down, and that it will check via heartbeats. So each server ping each other on like continuous intervals. They keep communicating with each other, and there is a particular limit as well as there is a time difference as well. So suppose they are communicating with each other, and if so they are waiting for the pings from other managed server. So if they do not receive a ping, suppose one managed server goes down, then definitely it will not, its heartbeat will stop. So it will not send any heartbeat messages to the other managed server because it is down. If a managed server is up, it will keep sending heartbeat to all managed server. If any managed server goes down, it will stop sending the heartbeats, and other managed server will saw that okay, we have not received heartbeat from server A, so that must be down. That's why we are not receiving that.
Is it like a separate like a modem or something, or it's just a software like a load balancer modem? Like different
Which one?
the heartbeat.
No, no, no. It is just a ping, you can say.
Oh, it's ping.
Yeah, it's like internal ping in Weblogic. So that like it connects to like other managed server using that ping.
Uh-huh.
It checks
So
that okay.
it's just basically it's just find if the your managed server is responding or alive or not, right?
Exactly. That is
But
exactly.
you won't like you won't uh, what do you call help to make it alive. It's just to find out if it's live or dead, right?
Yeah, that is the communication method basically. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
like all the managed servers are communicating using heartbeats.
Mm-hmm.
So it sends basically a ping sent from each managed server to other managed server. So if
So
yeah,
go
so
ahead.
if there are like three managed server and one managed server goes down, so other two managed servers will see that okay, managed server one is not sending the pings for this particular amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say like if like each managed server is receiving a heartbeat in 3 seconds.
Every 3 seconds, right?
Yeah. So every 3 seconds, a managed server is sending the request heartbeat to other managed server. Okay, so every managed server waits for 3 seconds. Okay, if it doesn't get any heartbeat in 3 seconds, it will say that okay, I have not received I have missed the first heartbeat. Okay, then I have missed the second heartbeat. Then I have missed the third heartbeat. So for like a whole 9 seconds, we don't have any communication with managed server 1. So it must be down or there must be some issues.
Uh-huh.
So it will mark that managed servers out of the cluster. And that will
And
remain out of the cluster until the heartbeat starts
comes
again.
back.
Yeah.
So
So
will it start back again like by itself, or we need to fix it?
yeah, it can restart on its own. Suppose there is some temporary network issue or there was
Uh-huh.
some temporary delay between managed server 1 and other managed server. So that can happen like mostly, but if like it goes down, then it will remain down until like you manually restart it. What happens is when you restart the managed server, it will again start sending the ping to other managed server and they will take back that into cluster.
Okay.
So like that is the way how in clustering it works. So whenever you create a cluster, it will ask you what kind of protocol you want to use. So you have unicast or multicast communication method in cluster. So we will see what is different between unicast and multicast. So previously like we used to have multicast, okay, but now the Oracle recommends unicast only. So we will see all the different things why and why Oracle recommends unicast now. Okay. So what used to happen that previous to 10.0 WebLogic version, okay, we used to have multicast option only. But from 10.0 onwards, we have unicast method also available in the cluster configuration. So what happens is in multicast basically it uses UDP multicast protocol. So that is a different kind of protocol, and you need to like have proper configuration in routers, and you should have TTL configured across multiple networks, subnets. But Unicast uses your normal TCP/IP, the protocol which we are currently using. So Unicast uses that TCP/IP protocol itself. There is no additional configuration which is needed for this TCP/IP Unicast method. Okay. So what we need to do is, in multicast we need to configure the multicast listen address, okay, and port, and we need to specify the network interface to use on machine with multiple NICs. Why multiple NICs? Because in multicast what is happening is that multicast IP should be available to, it should be like available to all the managed servers. They should be able to communicate or ping onto that multicast listen address. So what happens is basically in multicast listen address, you need that particular, you have a IP which is accessible over multiple managed servers or multiple physical servers. So that has to be part of your sub network because it should be available across your main network. And what is your this in Unicast, you have to just specify the listen address, okay, and it will work fine. You don't have to like do any additional configure at router level, or you don't need to any perform ask SA to make that particular IP available to on all physical servers. So in your multicast, what happens is the multicast IP and port which you have. So all the managed servers communicate with each other using that particular multicast IP and port. Okay. And how it works, each message is delivered directly and received directly from the network. So each server is communicating with each other in multicast. So that is the name. Multi means multiple managed servers communicating with each other in multicast method, and the other method is unicast. So this is the main difference in both unicast and multicast. So listen carefully. So what happens in unicast is in multicast there was no leader. So in unicast what happens is there is a group leader which is dynamically defined in unicast algorithm. Okay. So what happens is there is a group leader. It receives the heartbeat and it retransmits that particular heartbeat to other group members or any other group member if they exist. So there are like group members, and then there are group leaders. So here they are not communicating with each other, like directly communicating with each other. The request directly goes to group leader first, then the group leader retransmit that particular you can say the data to other members, group members, that they are aware which cluster or which managed servers in the cluster are active. So in this multicast case, what happened was every server sees every other server. Each managed server is communicating with each other, so they see each other. In Unicast, we have a group leader which acts as a messenger relay point. So it acts as a messenger between all other servers. And Unicast is more reliable due to the same feature that it has a group leader. And so in multicast is less reliable because there can be some temporary glitch or something. At that time it will wait for 3 consecutive missed heartbeat message to remove a member from the cluster list. And in Unicast is much more reliable, and there are very less chances of having a false heartbeat message. So in Unicast what happens is, even if a single heartbeat message is missed, then the member will be removed from the cluster. So due to these advantages, Unicast is recommended to use on managed servers for all clusters in the which have the managed servers. So what happens basically here, each server is connecting to each other server. So the number of connections which they are making to each other are very high because each has to connect to each one. Here we have the group leaders which are managing the communication thing between other managed server. So it's less chaotic. So each one is not connecting to each one but connecting to only group manager for the updates. So that creates less traffic and less congestion in the network. So that is main purpose of unicast and multicast communication. Okay, so now we will see how we can create and configure a cluster, how you can extend the cluster, how you can control the clustered servers, and how you can deploy apps to a cluster. So who would like to work on these today? I will make him the presenter, then we will do the configuration. Yeah, so any queries before that in communication or clustering?
So we'll be doing the unicast and multicast, how to do it in our cluster environment today.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, when you create the cluster, it will ask you what kind of communication method you want to use, and by default it will be unicast, but if you want to use multicast you can use that as well. But unicast is recommended to prevent network congestion, and it is more reliable as well than the multicast. Okay, so who want to work on the creating clustering and everything? Amit, Vinod, Sadev.
Amit, गर्ने कि नगर्ने? Amit, you want to do it or no? If not, I can do it.
Actually, I've been getting a lot of calls, so I have to keep receiving those calls. So I can't do that.
Okay, so shall I make Vinod the presenter?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, Vinod, yeah, is your admin server running?
Yes, it's running.
Okay, now just open the admin server and log into the admin server. I will be back in a second.
Anybody there? Brother,
Yes, please.
yeah, सबैजनाले म्युट गरिरहेको छ नि के हो?
I used to mute,
Yeah, I see who's muting. के हो? को पढिरहेको जस्तो नि यहाँ?
Ma?
अँ
Yeah, no, man. मेरो छोरी छ त यार अब म्युट गरेन भने त छोरीको भिडियो आउँदो रहेछ सबै अस्ति एउटा त पुरै भिडियो छोरीको मात्रै
बल्ल थाहा भयो होला
छ
बल्ल थाहा भयो के भिडियो हेरेर
छोरी धेरै बोल्दो रहेछ भन्ने कुरो अस्ति एउटा मेरो मात्रै क्लास भएको थियो नि त बाफ्रे सबै छोरी मात्रै बोलेको छ धन्न सुन्नुभयो भने थाहा पाउनुहुन्छ
म हेर्छु अब मेरो बिजी भएर हेर्नै पाएको छु
खोइ त हाम्रो सोमको त हो
खै सोमको त धेरै कल आइरहेको छ रे आज
कल त मेरो पनि आइरहेको छ मैले उठाएको छैन दुईटा कल आएर मिस गरेँ अहिले मैले त तिनीहरूलाई भनिरहेको छ 12 देखि 2 बजीसम्म म कल उठाउँदिनँ भन्नु
कति बजीसम्म
12 देखि 2
ए
Hey guys,
के गर्नुहुन्छ त
yeah, Vinod.
Huh? Okay.
You logged in?
Yeah, on it.
Okay. So right now you don't have any cluster defined because the column cluster is empty right now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just go to cluster.
Okay.
No. In environment, right?
I got one cluster, but it's not.
Yeah, you can delete it.
You already made a cluster, huh, Vinod?
Long time ago.
He had everything pre-installed, like when we were like learning installation, he already had it installed and up and running.
Yeah, I wanted to learn. I wanted to get a job, good job.
Actually, yeah,
How
that
many
is
minutes?
because unless you try doing something, then like those theoretically learning is like you can learn, but that will always be a puzzle, like how we can implement that in real time. So, unless you do it with your hands, like it's quite tough.
Yeah,
But once
like
you
last
like do it one time at least with your hands, then okay, it's quite easy then afterwards.
last class we had, we just did theoretical and we didn't get to do any hands-on hand training, you know, and we didn't know nothing. And the
Okay.
class we just had like 8 days. That's it.
Hmm.
Anyways, just do it.
Yeah.
So fill the new one.
Yeah. Click log and edit. Create a new cluster.
Any specific name related with the server, or just a name?
Usually, like since right now we don't have any situation in our hand, okay. So
Mm-hmm.
let's just create the cluster as per the name of that advertisement application we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just create a cluster with the same name, like advertisement cluster, so that we know that okay, we have created this for advertisement application.
Does it have to
So
be?
sorry. Do we need to make a separate cluster for each application, or can we deploy same application, different application in the same cluster?
Yeah, you can deploy a different application in the same cluster. There is no requirement. So that only like depends on you, like how you want to segregate it. Okay. Sometimes what happens is if there are multiple applications are provided with the same development team, and some apps are provided by some different development team, and they are like completely different. And so sometimes you need to bounce server for one particular application, but for some different application that doesn't need to be bounced on daily basis. So in such scenarios, you can have different kind of clusters, and you can like have a scheduled bounce for the application which is needed daily bounce, and you can keep on running the first application which doesn't need a bounce on different cluster. That's like your call, like how you want to have the clustering.
So that multicast, unicast all comes as a default.
Now they are disabled. You cannot edit those
Okay.
because like you will, if you select multicast, then
Mm-hmm.
you will be able to change the multicast address and port. But right now they
Okay.
are disabled in Unicast. Now click OK.
Okay. You need to do anything else? Customize?
Yeah, you can. No, no, no. Just click on cluster name.
Uh, Click on cluster. Cluster what?
No, no, the advertisement cluster. The cluster which we just created. Yeah. Yeah. So here you will be able to add some servers in that. So right now
Mm.
algorithm is round robin. So if you want, you can have some other algorithm as well as you wish. If you click on there, you can see that we have round robin, we have random affinity based. So affinity and these round robin we already like checked what are those. It's the same, like usually we keep the default values unless it is specified. In messaging, if you go to messaging tab, so here we have the messaging defined as Unicast. So if in future you want to change it, you can change it from here as well, all the fields. Now we will go to servers and add some managed servers into the cluster. Yeah, click on add.
Select energy server and
No. Yeah, we need to create a, we need to select the existing server.
this to do I need to create a new server and add it to this cluster?
You can do that as well if you don't have any managed server or you don't have existing managed server, then you can always create a new managed server at this point of time.
I can only choose only one cluster.
Yeah,
One.
so yeah, you have either you can create a new managed server here for the cluster, or you can select an existing managed server. So right now we are selecting an existing managed server ABC.
Okay, so that means I cannot choose ABC and also test or Amit
No, at a time only one.
one at a time. Okay. Next.
Yeah.
Oh, so if I want to add another server, so just do it the same thing. Add.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we can add M1. Like there is no point of having a cluster with one managed server only. So at least you should be having more than or equal to two managed servers in a cluster. So you can select M1. Okay, now activate the changes.
Let's see. Cluster.
So in servers, we now have ABC and M1.
M1.
Yeah. Now go to monitoring tab.
Shut down.
So right now we have both the managed servers are in shutdown state. Go to deployments.
So do we need to make a cluster when the managed server are shut down, or we can make when the server are still done?
Usually it's preferred like when they are running. Saidi, can you come with your question again? I think I missed that.
No, I'm talking. Which one is the preferable, or whether we make the cluster at the shutdown state or in the running state?
Yeah, you can make it anytime. There is no hard and fast rule for that. Okay. But to like make any changes because like making such changes are very big changes, so it's better we start the app servers after making the changes, after making any cluster changes.
Awesome.
Okay, now go to
Yeah.
servers. Yeah, you can go to control tab here.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So from here also you can start and stop the managed server. So right now they are in shutdown state, so you can restart those. But your M1 is not assigned to a machine, so you can
Mm-hmm.
assign it to a machine first.
Let's sign it, right?
Actually for M1, click on M1.
Cluster. Go from here. I forgot. M1.
Yep. Now just update the machine with the machine 0 for M1.
Okay.
For me it's like somewhat slow. So you have changed the machine to machine 0.
Yeah.
Okay. Now activate the changes.
Mm-hmm. Now start the server.
Yeah. Now go to the same cluster. From there go to control tab. Then start the servers one by one.
Node manager associated machine is not reachable.
Okay, right. Because you need to start the node manager first.
Right. Start the node manager.
Yeah, you need to start the node manager.
We don't have it here. So if we give a n%, it's gonna run in the background, right?
Yes.
Like that. Okay. Now do it again.
Okay, so node manager is up. Okay, now try to start and see if we get any errors. So now it is starting successfully. Okay, now refresh it. They must be up.
Like every time I refresh the task in progress, like a second goes up.
Yeah, because this is the time when you initiated the command. So it has took around 39 seconds. So if you refresh it again after 2 minutes, it will add 120 seconds. 8 months we have now. Still starting. Okay, in the meantime you can, okay, definitely it will come to admin state because your data source must be down. So it would be failing for data source connection. So that's why it is going to admin state. But you can always click on resume. If you go to control tab, you can click on the manage server. So in admin state, your app remains down. But if you resume the server, click on resume, it will again go to running status.
Why did only the ABC server go in the admin state?
Yeah, because you might have created the data source only on ABC, not on M1.
I mean, data source means the advertisement application data?
No, no, we created some JDBC data source. Click on JDBC data sources.
That means he has created
It will be in services. In services, JDBC data sources.
Okay, it says task complete.
Oh yeah, this is fine. Can you go to this JDBC data sources? Go to services tab, JDBC.
JDBC?
Not here. This is something different. In left tab, go to services. In domain structure. In services, go to JDBC data sources. We want to check the configuration actually.
Data sources, you say?
Yes. No. Yeah. So it is defined on ABC and admin server. So first click on it.
Let me lock and edit.
Yeah. And you can remove the admin server because we usually don't target JDBC to admin server, so that because usually we do not target anything on admin server because that will create unnecessary load on admin server.
Do I click M1 too?
You can click on no wait, go. This is for, yeah, you can click on all servers in the cluster, the above radio button. Yeah, so it will deploy on all the servers in the cluster, whether it is M1, whether it is AB, or even if you like add any other managed server as well, it will forward to that also.
So does that mean that you will be deploying the admin server too?
No, usually we do not do that on admin.
I chose the radio button on all server in cluster, so all server means admin server too, right?
No. All server in the advertisement cluster.
Okay.
And in advertisement cluster, we have the managed servers mentioned in the below part. So part of the
Yeah.
cluster are M1 and ABC only right now.
Okay.
But you
Yep.
can, right now you can ignore this because I think it will not work because the DB is down. Okay.
Right now I ignore the radio button, you mean?
Yeah, you can click on save and activate the changes and go to deployments. So here, go to advertisement application and then the targets.
What is this red error?
Yeah, that is because it will not be able to connect the database. So that's why that is. So you can even like undo these changes because it will not work.
Undo?
Yeah, undo all changes. Oh yeah, you can click OK. Let it done. Now, okay. So right now our target was admin server only.
Mm-hmm.
So now we will ignore the admin server
Mm-hmm.
and we will target into the advertisement cluster.
Master, yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Save. Okay. So that is activated. Yeah. Okay. So no restarts are necessary means your app should be available into the managed servers now. So go to any managed server.
Yeah.
So right now, no. Here we can see that ABC and M1 are part of the advertisement cluster.
Mm-hmm.
Now go to clusters. Go to the cluster. Click on cluster. Cluster name. Yeah, go to deployment. The upper part. Yeah. So now previously we were not able to see anything here, but now we can say that see that an advertisement application is present here. Application.
Mm-hmm. You know what is deployment order 100? Is it like a 100 user?
No. That is a default standard. Like what is the deployment order? Like if you can have different deployment order. Suppose you have some dependency that one app should be up before any other app comes, then you can define the order relatively. So
So
now,
that There
Yeah.
is only the name of the cluster, yes, that's advertisement application, not application. We have not.
No, no, it's full application
Assigned.
only. So if you go here, okay. Even like if you can go to monitoring section, so you will see the details. That is the monitoring for cluster. So we can see that, okay,
See
so
the
here
remote.
you can see the state and the managed server ABC and M1. We can see that the who is the group leader. Because this is unicast messaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now the group leader is M1 for ABC and M1 both. Okay, and the groups, what are the group members? They are M1 and ABC. So similarly, you can also check health and failover conditions. So here you can see the health of ABC and M1 both. Now let's do one thing. Okay, but we will test that scenario later, because to test that basically we need to have Apache installed, and we will need to configure Apache as well.
So what is this service? Don't have nothing display.
Yeah, because like there is no services installed, we have only the ER files. We don't have any service right now.
So what are the services that we have to install in the real job? Like, do we have to or we don't have to?
Yeah, that depends on like if your environment has some services and all, and definitely you will need to.
Like you give me any example, any name, like services, so I can research later.
Regarding services,
Yeah, like I want to study later, like what are the services?
okay, so for services basically, in what are the different services you have in this cluster? Okay, so JDBC we have already covered, okay, and we will covering JMS as well. So you can target JDBC, JMS, Work Manager, and any bridge which you have created in JMS. So those all can be targeted to advertisement cluster as well. So if
Mm-hmm.
you do that, then you have like two components. So ER is already deployed on cluster, and you can also do the same for JDBC.
Okay.
So right now we do not see anything here because the JDBC services, which we have not created any JDBC services. The one which we have created is already down. The JDBC is already down. So if you want to use that, you need to start that particular JDBC database, and then you can change the target from the individual admin server to the cluster. So when you do that, the data source will be created on all the managed servers on the cluster. It works that way. Okay, let's see. So now let's try, and we already deployed the application to the cluster, right? Now we are facing some issues with the application, and the higher management or higher dev team is saying that okay, add few more server or add one more server in the cluster. Okay, so do one thing, go to any server.
Okay. Let's go to solve it.
Yeah, let's go to Save. Go to Deployments tab. I just want to see if any app is required or not right now. So as you can see in deployments, it is showing 0, right?
Yeah.
So just add this Sahdev managed server into the cluster which we created. So just create it.
Add the server issue.
No. Go to clusters. Yeah. Click on this. Go to servers. Okay, so we will add. No, not into. Go to configuration. Click on servers tab. Have you clicked on the servers tab? Because I am still okay. Now add the Sahdev server to this list. So you have successfully added Sahdev as well in the cluster. For the suppose we were getting some new users, 50 new users. So now we have increased our capacity. So this feature comes as scalability. What is scalability? You have scaled your application from catering to few persons to plus 50 new users, because if there are 50 new users coming, then in that such scenarios you upgrade the servers or you add the more managed servers in the cluster. So now if you go to Sahdev, previously we saw that in Sahdev there was no application was deployed, but if you go there now, you can see that in the deployments tab you can see some applications there.
The deployment in the upper part, buddy.
Yeah. This is the configuration part. We need to check the current monitoring situation. See, previously it was 0 here. I guess Sahdev is down, so that's why it is showing the state as new.
Start Sahdev again, right?
Yeah. You can go to cluster and then
We can start the server from cluster, or I have to go back to server?
You can start from cluster as well.
Okay, let's start from
Because in
cluster.
cluster as well, you have start and stop options there, right? So you can use those, but usually you can also like do that from backend or using node manager from the usual screen.
That's not the one.
No, not from here. Go to the control section.
Control. The server doesn't have machine associated, so
Okay, first you need to have machine associated, right?
definitely. So go inside the SADE first, right?
Yes. Go into the site aid manage server, then change the go to servers, then manage server. Now you are assigned to machine 0.
Okay. Now,
Now you can again restart from the control tab.
yeah, I think it started already. It's saying new.
So did you try restarting? Go to servers in the control tab.
Mm-hmm.
Try
It's
restarting. Yeah.
running again. Now it's active, yeah.
Sorry. No.
Active now.
Yeah. Because previously it was down, so it was showing in the
New.
new state. But even though the app was not available on this server, we had the other two managed servers
Right.
as well where the app was running. So that is the purpose of cluster. So even if one JVM is down, the app should be available from other machines or other servers like that.
So how many state are there? Like active state and new state. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, actually, yes, we discussed these state. Do you have the PPT open with you?
Which one?
The presentation. We discussed the states when we were like checking onto the deployments. So usually we have new, prepared, admin, failed, and active. We check regarding new, when do we have prepared. Prepared is
Uh-huh.
when it is like ready to be made active.
Uh-huh.
Okay, admin if any resource failed in the background, just like
Oh yeah.
yeah, our managed server went to admin state because JDBC failed due to
Mm-hmm.
connectivity issue.
Yeah. So new is not starting.
Okay, you can go to clusters again. So we now have three managed servers in the cluster, and all three managers have the same application running there. Okay, so they are communicating with each other, and even we can check the status of our cluster as well. all the clusters, who is the group leader, is there any dropouts in the communication, all those details you can check from the monitoring. Okay, so any other question in this?
Not for me. Got it?
Amit, any queries?
No, not for this.
And Sadev, any queries? Niran?
No, that's good.
Okay. And Vinod, do you have anything?
No, not really. You know this, like a chart?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
It says 00. It's supposed to be 00, like in the, when we go to the real job, and then it says 00. That means it's perfect, fine, or
I didn't get your question actually. Can you repeat that?
yeah. You see a remote group discovered and 0,
Mm-hmm.
0. That means there's no remote group. That's why it's
Means
0,
like
right?
there is no disconnect or any managed server didn't go down. So you can do one thing. Okay. You can stop this Sahadev.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so it is shut down state now. Once it is shut down, go back to the cluster again, and from there we will see what is the current cluster status.
Monitoring. Okay, shut down. Yeah.
No, go to monitoring tab. Go to summary.
Summary.
Yes. No, the first tab. So here we can see the Sahadev is running, means not running, and it is in shutdown state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now it is not part of any group and everything. Everyone has stopped listening about it because it is showing down in the console. So unless you got some alert or you check it manually, then only you need to restart the manage server or admin server, any other component. So now here you can see is in the group leader is M1 still, and the group has only M1 and ABC. Previously it has M1, ABC and Sahadev, but now since Sahadev is down, the group address is only M1 and ABC with an address. So now all the requests which will be coming to cluster will either go to M1 or will go to ABC. So they will not go to Sahadev because that is down and out of our physical cluster. Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, then we are good. I guess you have to go to somewhere as well, today.
Yeah.
Okay, let me make the presenter again myself.
So when are we going to download that Apache and then?
You can download. I will give you a link, so probably you can check that. You can. Okay, I guess we already have Apache with XAMPP.
Really?
Yes. Okay. So we will configure in probably tomorrow's session. Because tomorrow, what session we have? So tomorrow we will be having security architecture, so probably we will get some time and then we will do that. Okay, so guys, any other queries? Else we can drop, and I will share the today's and yesterday's video as well, because I didn't get time to post for yesterday as well. That is also pending.
Manoj,
Yeah, Satiq.
I started the Sadeb again, right, in the cluster,
Mm-hmm.
and it's saying rarely, like a dropout frequency is saying rarely. You know why it's saying that?
Means it is saying that that will like work out in like long run. So it is nothing but it just maintains a track record of each managed server whenever it drops out or how much it crashes. So if your managed server is going down on daily basis multiple times, then your daily frequency will change from rarely to frequently.
Frequently. Okay. Just a message.
Yeah, it's just a message.
Okay.
So you can figure out like which managed server is having issues or going down on most of the basis, usual
Mm-hmm.
basis. So we will see it live when we the how the clustering is working. We will see it only when we configure it with Apache. So that will act as load balancer basically. So in that we will stop different kind of apps and managed servers, and we will see that how the clustering is working in the failover and load balancer method. Okay.
Okay.
So okay then, I guess we're good. If anyone don't have any questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sure
So
then.
what time
See.
is your class tomorrow?
Yeah. Tomorrow we will be having the same 12 Central.
Yeah. 12.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Thanks for joining
All
us.
right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.